guys, welcome back to another episode of Pressing Matters. And today we are going to be discussing Pep Guardiola's Manchester City. We're going to be talking about the subtle tactical changes that Pep Guardiola is likely to make and has made since we've watched their first Premier League game against Burnley, if I'm not wrong. Yes, the first game against Burnley. And we're going to talk about the effect that the transfer market and their activity in the transfer market is going to have on Manchester City in their pursuit to defend their treble. So let's get started. Now, the first thing that I'm going to point out is the fact that Manchester City are now going to play with a slightly different formation. So in the previous season, as was the case, as I mentioned in my breakdown of the Champions League final that City played against Inter Milan, City had started playing 4 at the back with John Stones as the right centre back, who was moving forward and leaving the defence with a back 3 to move into the midfield and give City a numerical advantage, which they needed because they were not playing with a false 9 anymore. They were playing with Haaland as a number 9 who would stay up top and come back to pick up the ball a little less. So to mitigate for that, John Stones was going up into the midfield and playing as a midfielder in attack to give City the numerical advantage that they needed to carry their attack forward. Now, this tactic is not something that City are going to be using this season, as is evident from their first game against Burnley. And even though in attack, City were playing a 3-4-3 in a way, with Stones going up and making 4 in the midfield, a box midfield of sorts, City are now going to go into a 4-2-4 formation, which is going to see Erling Haaland playing alongside Kevin De Bruyne in the formation itself on paper. Although we know that Erling Haaland is going to be going far forward and Kevin De Bruyne is going to be playing as a number 10 of sorts and possibly even falling backwards and playing as a number 8 if the situation requires it. Then they're going to have their wingers, and this is where City have an interesting prospect in Cole Palmer, who is likely to be getting more playing time on the right wing now that Riyad Mahrez has left. And I think the left wing is nailed down. You cannot really argue against Jack Grealish there. So I think that will be where he plays. And I'm just going to look at the lineup once again. So in the game against Burnley in particular, City played a 4-2-3-1, which is quite similar to Chelsea's formation and in a way quite similar to Manchester United's formation. And you see these commonalities now in the big 4 or the big 6 clubs where their formations are quite similar, even though their tactical profiles and the way their players use those formations is different. So we might see a switch between the 4-4 and this particular formation, and you can see this in the gameplay as well, because when they're playing this formation, so in particular when they were playing against Burnley with the 4-2-3-1, they had Erling Haaland playing as the number 9 up top and Julian Alvarez playing in the centre attacking midfielder or the number 10 role right behind him, even though he is another forward. And Phil Foden was playing on the left, Bernardo Silva was playing on the right, Rodri and De Bruyne were playing in the midfield. So De Bruyne was far backwards, and this is not the same formation that they were playing in the pre-season. So Pep Guardiola is likely to now test out a few formations and maybe settle onto one, or keep his tactical fluidity and keep changing formations throughout the season. But this is not the same approach as they used last season, because as you can see from the Burnley game, the back 4 was of Rico Lewis on the left back position, Nathan Ake and Marouane Akanji in the 2 centre back positions, and then Kyle Walker in the right back position. So there is no John Stones in that whole team sheet, which means that the one thing that we can guarantee, regardless of the shifts in formations, is that City are not going to be using John Stones the same way they were using him last season, and they are not going to use a back 4 in defence, which will turn into a back 3 when John Stones goes up. Now, some factors that we can consider when we try and figure out how City are going to do this season. Well, let's get through the list. The lack of business in the transfer window in City's case might be something that will affect their performance in a way, because City have lost a lot of players. They've lost Cancelo on the left back position, and they lost him even before the season ended last year. But they do not have an out and out replacement for him, and Rico Lewis, even though he is a great player, is a very young player. So there might be situations where Rico Lewis might be a little inexperienced to deal with certain teams or certain players who might be more experienced or might be far faster or quicker or more technical than him. So that is something that we need to look out for when it comes to Manchester City. Another thing that we need to figure out when it comes to Manchester City is whether Phil Foden will actually play as the left winger, or will he be shifted into the right wing, because in actuality there is a very low chance that he will replace Jack Grealish on the left wing, unless Jack Grealish is brought into the centre attacking midfielder role or somewhere in the midfield, which is unlikely. He could be brought in as a centre attacking midfielder, but I don't think he's going to be brought back into the midfield instead of Rodri or De Bruyne. Now, De Bruyne has been injured since the last game, and it has been confirmed that he is going to be out because of injury. So there is going to be a shift in the players that are going to be playing in the starting 11 as well, and that might also trigger, like I said, another formation change. So these are very interesting things that we need to look out for, because City is going to be shifting its players and formations almost every week till they finally settle onto one. Another factor is that they have lost Gundogan. So they've not just lost Cancelo, they've lost Mahrez, they've lost Gundogan, and even though they have brought another midfielder in who is very, very talented, who is an ex-Chelsea player in the form of Mateo Kovacic, Gundogan and Kovacic are very different profiles. So while Gundogan is very good in the attacking phases, in the sense where he makes very interesting and well-timed darting runs into the box and gets onto the ball, receives the ball to score a lot of goals, Kovacic is not known for that. Kovacic is more of a box-to-box midfielder who is known for carrying the ball, who's known for his dribbling ability and his control. So Kovacic is the person that you give the ball to when you want to progress it through a very tight space, or you want him to carry the ball forward when there are no other options. So he's excellent at that. He's probably one of the best dribblers in the Premier League at this point, and he has been for a while. But what Kovacic cannot do is give you as many goals as Gundogan does, or be the kind of goal threat inside the box that Gundogan was, making late runs from the midfield when the box is already cramped. So they might have to look somewhere else to replace Gundogan's goals, even though they have Erling Haaland firing on all cylinders, as you can tell from the Burnley game. Now, like I said, Mahrez is another player who has left City, and his replacement could either be Cole Palmer or Phil Foden. It is far more likely that Phil Foden will take up that space, because Cole Palmer is younger and less experienced, but he is a very good option as well. And I genuinely believe that you can circulate these two players in that position and maintain that position very, very well without seeing too much of a drop in ability when it comes to the whole team and the way it plays. Another thing that we know very, very well is that Guardiola is going to, like I said, he's going to keep changing his tactics and his formations, which is something he does every season. So you hardly ever see Pep Guardiola starting a new season with the same formation and the same tactics. There are always at least a few subtle changes. This season, though, I think the team is in more flux than usual, because they've lost players who were very, very important, integral parts of the team. And they were not substitute players who could have been replaced easily. They are genuine starting 11 players in Cancelo, in Gundogan, in Mahrez. So how Pep Guardiola manages to mitigate for that lack, or which players now shine and take up those positions, is something that we need to look out for, and something that only time will tell. Pep Guardiola is also likely to shift from a high possession based only tactical profile to a more compact style that brings more players into the center, number one, and number two, looks at putting direct balls forward for Haaland more often. If you go back to the Burnley game at halftime, there was a point when City were 2-0 up. Erling Haaland had scored both those goals, and everybody was literally kissing his ass from the commentary team to the fans. But Pep Guardiola was upset with him. And he was upset with him because he wanted Erling Haaland to come backwards more than he was and also be a part of the defensive structure of the team. Not just that, he also wanted Erling Haaland to come backwards a little to pick up the ball or to play as a hold-up player, which is something that he hasn't been doing very often, because Erling Haaland is not the player that you put the ball to from the defense directly and then play that very quick counter-attacking style. This is something that Pep Guardiola wants to integrate in his tactics, and this is something he wants Erling Haaland to do, because City are already a very good possession-based team that allow the opposite team to sit back and then they start breaking through their lines. They're also a very quick team on the counter attack, but the one thing that they lack is that direct outlet that goes straight from the defense when the ball is gained in the defense, and they lack that direct outlet where you just put the ball to Haaland and then Haaland with one or two other attackers just goes on the charge and scores a goal. That is something that City are working on now. It is quite evident from the Burnley game. Kovacic, in particular, if we talk about Mateo Kovacic, he is going to start a lot further behind than Gundogan did. So, like I said, Kovacic is more of a box-to-box midfielder who's known for ball carrying, dribbling, and control. And this is not to say that Gundogan wasn't good at those things, but Kovacic is better at those things. Like I said, what Kovacic lacks is the ability to make those last-minute darting runs into space when he can receive the ball and score a goal. So, since he is not going to be giving City that option as often as Gundogan did, he is going to be playing a little further back than Gundogan did, and he's going to be charged with linking up the defense and the attacking line. This doesn't mean that Rodri is not going to be playing as the CDM, and from the Burnley game you can tell that Rodri is still running the game as the CDM and he's doing very, very well. But that connection between the defense and the attack, where you cannot just put the ball up and expect somebody to control it, where you want the midfielder to carry the ball through 2-3 players and dribble past them, that job is going to be given to Mateo Kovacic now, and it is going to be very interesting to see how he is integrated into the City lineup. Another thing to look out for is how City's expected goals are going to change this season, because despite all of their success last season, if you look at their statistics, City won 28 games, drew 5 games and lost 5 games, which is good. It is not a bad stat. They scored 94 goals in total, but their expected goals was 78.7. So what you can tell from there is that they are performing far beyond their expected goal levels, and most of that has to do with the fact that Erling Haaland performs beyond his expected goal metrics. What that tells us is that, like the end of last season where Erling Haaland didn't score for a run of say 8 or 9 games, I think 9 games, if Erling Haaland is not scoring again and he has that kind of a patch where he's not scoring for say 7, 8, 10 games, then how are they going to cover up for that lack? Because their expected goals are a lot lower than what they had scored last season, and Erling Haaland had made up that gap. So that is something to look out for. I genuinely believe that a lot of the tactical changes that Pep Guardiola is making come down to the fact that he wants to bring that expected goal average up, so that even when the team is not in form, which is unlikely, the whole team can't be out of form, but even when the attackers, or say Erling Haaland, is not in form and he's not scoring 1 or 2 goals every game, if their expected goals are high, it means that the rest of the team is also contributing, so they can mitigate for that lack. They can cover up for one player not being at the same level as he usually is at. So that is something that we need to look out for. And the last thing I want to point out is that even though Kevin De Bruyne is injured, he is going to be key to this new style where City try and play more from the wings and play more directly by putting the ball up towards Haaland or some of the wingers directly, and they are not going to be playing through the center as much as they usually do. That does not mean they will not break down teams and play possession ball and play through the center. They will, but they are going to take opportunities now to put the ball on the wing and quickly launch attacks, or put the ball directly to Haaland and quickly launch attacks, for which Haaland will have to come further backwards to receive the ball, because he can't sit inside the box and expect the defender or the goalkeeper to launch the ball at him, and he can't expect the ball to reach him effectively if he's not coming backwards to receive the ball and play as a hold-up striker. So Kevin De Bruyne is going to be very important in this new style, because when City are going to be playing the 4-2-4 formation, which they played in the preseason quite often, De Bruyne is going to be playing as the number 10 behind Erling Haaland, and he is going to be the creative force that allows Haaland and the wingers to make runs and collect the ball in the attacking phase and score goals. So number one, they need Kevin De Bruyne back. Otherwise, they cannot even play this 4-4 formation as effectively, because who is going to replace De Bruyne as the creative force? Maybe Jack Grealish can do it, but I don't think Jack Grealish has the passing range that De Bruyne does, so he can't put the ball as accurately into a player's path or at his feet as De Bruyne can. And secondly, Jack Grealish does not have the vision that De Bruyne does. Now, he is a very good player, he has great vision, he sees the game very well, but he cannot do the things that Kevin De Bruyne can. So there is no clear replacement for him. So till Kevin De Bruyne does not come back, we are going to be seeing a lot of formation and tactical changes most likely, and I expect them to go back to the 4-4 formation once Kevin De Bruyne is back and they can effectively use him in the team. Anyway, that is my piece. Do let me know what you think about City, what you think about their new tactical profile, and what your expectations are, whether you're a City fan or a neutral or a Chelsea, United or Liverpool or Arsenal fan. Let me know what your thoughts are on City and how they're going to fare this season. I genuinely believe that this season is going to be more competitive, because there are a lot of teams that have improved a lot and are going to be gunning for the Premier League title or the top four. So it is going to be interesting to see if City can maintain their supremacy this season as well. Thank you so much. Please like, share, subscribe and comment, and I'll see you next time with another team's tactical profile.